Uh-huh. So don't everybody go away because recording's in progress. Everyone, welcome. My name is Christiana Frank, and this is an official applied improv of Reno, Tahoe meetup. And these are going to be free, probably quarterly. If it's something interested you would be presenting in, reach out to me. I'll just briefly say my background is I've been using, before it was called applied improvisation, this method since 1991 in mental health corporations and mainly K through 12 education. It is my pleasure and honor, because I will stalk some of you later too to do the same thing. So you don't want to watch what I did to him. Is William Hall. I had gotten one of his books years ago, and I was so excited when he said that he would do this. And William designs and delivers trainings for teams and executives. And with that said, I haven't been on the computer as much, but we used to do wave in. So let's wave in William Hall, if you don't mind.
You've given up 1 hour of your time to be here today, which is remarkable. Take a look around at the screen. If you're on gallery view, it's a great way to take a look at everyone else. It's kind of a permission to just look at everyone and go to the other screen if you want. Everyone here shares a common interest in creating engagement, in heightening engagement on Zoom meetings or other platforms. Everyone here also is interested in sort of wringing out the most learning and the most training and transformation that can come from an activity or a session. This is great. This is great. We're in our community. And one of the beautiful things about AIN is this ability to reach out to each other. I've never met a more generous community than the Applied Improvisation Network. So I want you to remember that when you're sitting there and feeling maybe a little isolated or lonely or confused about what do I do. And this is an open invitation to you to sort of reach out to me as well. Please consider reaching out to me. I'm happy to have chats like this. And if this goes well, maybe we'll put together another one and do a little bit more. By a show of hands, how many people have hands? Great. Thanks. In a moment, we'll be breaking out into breakout rooms, and I'm going to give you a short assignment. This is a little bit of cover time for Christiana to do the magic.
How many people do you want? I have to count on my fingers.
Two people.
Two in a breakout room? Do I have to?
Yeah. This is one of the great things about this. We think of Zoom as being impersonal, but there are ways that we can make connections. And one of the things that icebreakers do is they put your voice in the room. They get you involved. So this is one of my favorite things to do at any time during a training. Put people in groups of two for only 2 or 3 minutes and have them check in with each other. Because it doesn't matter what you say, it only matters what they hear. And you don't know what they hear. And I'll add a third step to that. So doesn't matter what you say, and actually it doesn't matter what they hear. It actually matters what they do. What's changed because they've been here in this moment? What has changed? And the change happens in the engagement and in the reflection. So icebreakers are all about engagement and reflection. And of course, today we're going to be taking a look at icebreakers and taking a look at debriefs. Oh, please feel free to use that chat and say hello to anyone on this group. The value that you get from this group, it won't be determined by me. It'll be determined by you. So maybe you connecting and having a side chat with someone on the chat might be perfect for what we're doing here today. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go into this breakout room, and I'm going to give you one of two things to talk about. You can either talk about what's great about icebreakers, or you can talk about what's horrible about icebreakers. Why do we love icebreakers? Or what's horrible? Why do we hate icebreakers? And let's hold a little space that both of those things can actually be true. We'll put you in there for about 2 minutes and 53 seconds. And when you come back, feel free to, I'll ask you to share probably in the chat, but maybe I'll call on a few of you. And listen, for all of the activities we do today, the instructions are just an invitation, just an invitation. When you get to that room, you don't have to talk about that. You can talk about what's going on in your life. You can talk about stress. You can talk about joy. You can talk about, whatever you want to talk about. But I invite you to take the opportunity to chat with the other person. How do you choose? Well, I'll leave that up to you, which you talk about, what's great or what's not great. But I would encourage you to choose just one. You don't get extra points for covering it all. Just dive into that for 2 minutes and 58 seconds. So, Christiana, why don't we go off and start that? And feel free to come back to the main room.
Yes, and for all you that saw me counting, I just saw the number of participants is actually listed on the screen. So I'm going to send you, it'll say 60 seconds left after 2 minutes, and then just hang out because that'll make it the 2 minutes and 53 seconds. And here we're off.
Hi. We were just talking about you.
That's why I came. I'm like, what is going on in that room?
This is both of our first time doing anything with you, and I'm so excited. I don't want to speak for Sylvia, but I'm so excited.
Sybil.
This is, yeah, and this network thing, I just let it take its own form. You'll see other things that come up where you get like continuing education credits as either theater teachers or regular teachers or mental health professionals. But in this atmosphere, it's really like just bringing together for play. I don't know what William's got planned. We don't plan. We just do. But he's really good. But are you guys starting the question of, because I know what I think about virtual. I just joined a room. I saw Mary in here and I'm like, I'm coming in there. But if we were to stick to his top, do you guys want to stick to the topic?
Yeah.
I feel like people don't find value in them because I'm all into the neuroscience of how the brain works with these activities. And so when I go in with a client, whether it's a K through 12 education system or whatnot, people don't conceptualize how powerful play can be.
Absolutely. I do arts integration with the schools, and sometimes I think it's dismissed as
I have to be right back. I'm so sorry. Keep
no
going,
problem.
though, please.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Hi, I was sitting in a breakout room all by myself. No one else was there.
Oh, you were? And it's almost over. I'm kind of...
Yeah, I was talking.
Well, let's ask. I know. I don't know why.
I was talking to myself.
Did you do well?
Why break? I did well. I was talking to myself about why icebreakers were good, and I was adjusting my eyebrows because my Santa eyebrows are a little wild today. So yeah. Well, hi, how are you?
I'm good. I left my breakout room because I saw you coming in and I was trying to figure out where you were. We were talking about how I didn't feel like icebreakers are taken as, I was in this gal, Mary Bennett's room, and we were talking about how I feel like people don't take icebreakers as serious. Mary, I'm sorry I left your room. I had to go let someone in. Glenn was all alone and I couldn't have that.
I was in a room all by myself, talking to myself. It was fine. I had a
Whose fault is that?
The gremlins.
chances are good that you were in a room with somebody pretty interesting and that they had something interesting to say. So uh, there's a lot of we have a lot of information now in this group. Uh, Amy Nash, let me ask you which group which side of the coin? And by the way, whenever I call on you, you can simply say pass, pass, for whatever reason. We don't have to explain it. I just want to make sure. Um, and this is core to my philosophy about icebreakers and debriefs, that everything is an invitation, and we don't want to force compliance. We just want to make it an invitation. Somehow part of the job of the icebreakers to bring people comfortably into our shared experience. Amy, I've talked enough. Which side of the coin that issue did you talk about? What came up for you?
We talked a little bit about both, but mostly we really liked what you said about using your voice, just putting your voice out there, and it doesn't really matter what you say or what it is. It's just connecting with someone and using your voice.
Yeah. So just to follow that a little bit, and so the idea is the icebreaker gets your voice out there, sort of out. His voice, you actually use your voice, so you come out. Why is that an advantage? I mean, we could look at both of those. Could be a disadvantage, could be an advantage. But why is that an advantage? You have anything more on that, Amy?
What comes up is being seen.
Yeah. Yeah. I invite you, if you haven't taken a look recently at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's fascinating, the things that motivate people. And I'll just identify, Amy, I think that's so well said. And you and your partner, I'm sure everyone did great work, but that's great. The idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like what drives our behavior, what drives the way we show up in the world. And at the very bottom is just food and sleep. But as you get higher up in the pyramid, you get being seen, being recognized, being a part of a group. So we're already sort of high up in the pyramid if we just get people's voice in the room and get them participating. Depending on the kind of session you're running, that could be a disadvantage if people feel like they can just throw their voice in at any time. Sybil Meyer. Hey, Sybil. Anything you'd like to add that you and Mary talked about?
Well, I mentioned that I do like icebreakers because I like having a focus when relating to somebody that I don't know and there's a very short time. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Who's willing to thank you for that. Yeah, we like an icebreaker because it's the transition from not being in the meeting to in the meeting. Who talked about what's terrible about icebreakers? Can anyone share that, or are we all just positive AINers?
Oh, no, I went negative.
Great. What came up?
Adam, go for it.
I just wanted to say that I do love icebreakers, but I hate the term icebreaker because it suggests there's a lot of ice to break between two people, and it might be awkward, it might be uncomfortable, we might have conflict. So rephrasing it, I think, would be very useful.
Good luck with that, Adam. I tell you, I feel the same way. Icebreaker sort of reduces it to some task, but often, if you can get the room warm, if you can get people feeling like they belong here, then the transformations, the sense of accomplishment, the outcome will be tremendously improved. But if you get it wrong, then it's just it can be just another the meeting could be retitled Another Hour Closer to Death. Yeah. Hey, Gabby, do you have your hand up?
Margaret does.
Yeah. Okay. I'll get the. Let me get Gabby. Do you have something?
Oh, Gabby.
Margaret. Yeah.
Actually, I love icebreakers and teach them, but when I have to do them myself, I actually have to admit I'm scared. It's like, oh, okay, no, well, not me, but I know how people feel when I push an icebreaker upon them, and I know I love them when I do them, but it's also a little bit scary, to be honest.
Thank you for putting that in the room. It is often that moment when you are asserting some kind of authority over the group. You're saying, follow me, I'm here, here's what we're going to do. Right. So I'm going to speak to that in just a second. I want to hear what Margaret has to say too. Thanks, Gabby.
Hi, I'm Margot, and the first thing I think is that it starts a sense of playfulness right away, especially if you do some silly icebreaker or silly activity, and like if you put them according to if you have a big group and you put them according to the months they were born in, it's like this instant relationship. Oh, we were both born in July. I love you. You know, it just instantly gets people in that playful mood, which I love.
I really appreciate that, Margot, and that playful mood is so human and so connective for us. And particularly in this group of AINers, we tend, I think, we tend to skew towards playful. Let's create a playful interaction. We're going to go back into breakout rooms. So, Christiane, if you can arrange for groups of 3 this time, if that's possible, you have to do a little bit of math there, but and random again. Here's what I want to suggest to everyone here. And I'm sorry I didn't get to everyone. With smaller groups, we can get a little bit more interaction. But as you saw, raising your hand or putting some note in the chat is a nice way to get through. And I encourage you to put your notes in the chat. You can share anything in the chat, and we can save the chat later, and it can be a beautiful artifact, which I'll talk about when we get to the debrief section. Okay. Here's my belief about icebreakers or opening moments. They must be connected to the topic and purpose of the meeting. In other words, they have to be relevant. What's the relevance of this icebreaker? I'm all for playfulness if we need playfulness in the meeting. But in another way, we could do icebreakers that have no playfulness in it, but are just engaging. The icebreaker we just did of going into a breakout room and talking about the relevance of icebreakers, has a connective element to it, but it's not necessarily playful. So I think this is really powerful. When thinking about what icebreaker to use, think about what's the purpose of the meeting. For example, I'll share with you one of my favorite icebreakers. And Gabby, this comes a little bit to your point. As with that first icebreaker that I just used, I often suggest that we make the participants do the work. Let them do the work. And here's the other beautiful thing about icebreakers. Their experience is their experience. They're actual experts in their experience, which is part of the debrief talk. But you don't have to push for a particular experience. You can let them be where they are and negotiate their own dynamic. And I'm a big fan of Tyagi. I trained with Tyagi for many years, and I just believe in a little bit of the lazy facilitator. Let them do all the work. So let me invite you to an example of an icebreaker that I often use. I think it will be actually useful for us right now. I'm going to invite everyone in just a moment to close your eyes and spend 1 minute in silence, allowing yourself just to arrive at this meeting at this moment in space. I heard a great quote last night. Your appointment with life is in the present. So let's get to the present. If you have a meditation practice, you'll recognize this. If you don't, here's what I recommend. I recommend that you just think about your breathing and just focus on your breathing. Ideas will come into your brain. You can let them go. No need to fight them or sort of address them. This is 1 minute that you get not to work on anything. So I'll time it. I invite you to close your eyes. Let's do 1 minute, starting now, breathing. that is 1 minute. I invite you to go to the chat section and chat in what you noticed in that minute. And we accept all answers. Like that was a total waste of 1 minute. That's fine. Anything's fine. Just what did you notice? Hey, Kurt Marwitz, nice to see you here. Could you take a look at some of those chats and just pull out one that you identify as being interesting or resonant to you, and just read it out loud for us?
Yeah, let me find one here. I thought I saw one. Hey, and William, good to see you again. Long time no talk. I thought I saw something there, relaxing, calming. Uh, to me, I was trying to put in the chat here and I didn't hit send early enough, but it felt like it was a real stress reliever or stress reducer just to sit there calming for a full minute there, because I think most of us on the call today, whether you're working or not, I know with my job, it's heavy stress. So just to take a minute to stop, and take in life, and just breathe in there for a full minute without thinking about projects or deadlines and all was really nice. So need to do more of that every day, no doubt. So
thanks for that personal experience. I appreciate that. I've been working with a group all year, and they've just started. I work with them every month, and about the third month, they said, "Hey, William, aren't we going to do the minute of silence?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, right, sure, of course. Let's do the minute of silence." I'm going to ask Christiana to put you in groups of 3, and I want you to talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I want you to talk back to this purpose. How do we create relevance in the debrief? I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes for that in a group of 3. Enjoy that moment, whatever is there for you.
I'm sorry. I haven't done tech in so long. I'm like counting on my fingers and setting alarms over here.
It's okay. Don't worry. I just came in. I'm sorry I'm late. I couldn't.
No, you're good. We're talking about the power of debriefs right now, but to be honest, I don't know if I'm about to broadcast them to come back, but did you hear the question we're supposed to be doing?
No, don't worry. I think they're supposed to talk about why debrief. No.
Yeah. So I'll just I'm gonna pause. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna find out right now.
Is it possible that breakout was too short?
Did I get it at 2.5 minutes? I thought.
No. However long it was, it would have been too short, I suggest.
Okay.
You get smart people in a good conversation with a good question, and magic happens. Beautiful things happen. Creating if you do a search on the internet, or icebreakers for Zoom. We get pages of lists. So I see Sheila. I'll get to you in just a second. And feel free to write a little text. William, Christiana, I have something to contribute. So I suggest it's not a question of finding an icebreaker. I suggest it's about the relevance of the icebreaker. And then, as Gabby put into the room, that sort of moment of going, that leap of faith that we're going in, that we're going to go into an icebreaker. We've got a couple more minutes on this. Sheila, what do you got? What's coming up for you?
I was trying to let you know that we couldn't hear you, but now it's fixed. Sorry.
Great. I might have said something fantastic in that moment. Thank you. I want to share a couple of other icebreakers that I like. One icebreaker that I've been discovered this year on this platform for training sessions is what we did at the very beginning, where I raised the questions of relevance and asked them to create relevance. I used to teach storytelling by saying things like, human beings communicate in story. You tell stories. You may not consider yourself a storyteller, but you are. We listen for story. We remember story. Your ability to tell stories will determine your success, not just in your community, but in the greater world. I would say something like that. And then I realized that that's all my thoughts about story. And so I do this, sort of, instead of me creating relevance, I'll ask them to create relevance. Go into the breakout rooms, and here's the question. Is storytelling important in what you do, and why? And let them talk for a couple of minutes. That conversation, in my opinion, is much more valuable than me talking at them and showing them slides about storytelling. And besides, if they get that right and have a nice conversation about it, my job is done. They're already bought in. Otherwise, it's just a guy talking to them on the video screen. Matt, you've been doing this for a long time, Matt Weinstein. Any thoughts or comments about what I just said? Observations, sarcastic remarks? Yeah. Good point.
Sorry. I was just trying to translate it in my head as you were going to, fun at work. Rather than, I like to give them a few examples and then, of course, let them go and brainstorm their own examples. Yeah. Because stuff they come up with is so much more relevant to them than the stuff that I'm, putting on top of it. So, yeah.
And for longer, so thank you, Matt, for saying that. The stuff they come up with is much more relevant to them because they know they're an expert on their life and their experience.
Yeah. One thing that was great the other I got to do 2 sessions, one for Europe, which was actually at 1 a.m. my time, and then the next one for the Americas, which was at 2 p.m. And they wanted identical sessions. So that was great because I could harvest the chat from the Europe group and give them some examples that were much more relevant than the ones I had dreamed up for them that their colleagues had come up with before answering the same question. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate your example and experience. Getting their voice in the room, choosing the right, and giving them clear instructions. Icebreakers go wrong when the instructions are confusing or unclear. My general philosophy is you tell them just enough when they need to know it. It's just enough, just in time. Just enough, just in time. We get into trouble when it gets, because in training, I've always called it the blah, blah, ginger factor. There's this moment when you think you're being completely clear, but they might not be in a place to hear it. So I'll share with you briefly some of the other, the ones I really like. And the the two debriefs, the two icebreakers I really like right now are the two that we did. What are we here to discuss and why is it important? Some quality of that. And the minute of silence to allow ourselves to arrive in the room. Those are kind of universal, and they run themselves, Gabby. They run themselves. You don't have to do anything. I also like the ideas of sort of follow the leader, which are kind of fun activities to debrief for leadership. You can feel me transitioning into the debrief section. I like doing something I just really, really enjoy. Everyone pick up an object that's within reach of them. It doesn't have to be any object. If you have to get up to get it, it's too far away. Yeah. Show it to the camera, if you will. Right. So, I just want you to note that you don't know what comes next. That's on purpose because I want to break it into bites so it's easy for them to follow. Now, I want you to take 28 seconds and think of a kind of meeting that you run or a session you run, and think what's the next step in this debrief for your meeting? The kind of meeting you're running. What would be the next step here? How is that object reflective of your role in this team, I might say, if I'm working on teamwork? If we think of that object as a metaphor or as a token, how does it represent your leadership in the current moment? How's that object related to your creativity, to your sense of spontaneity? How does that object capture something about your ability to communicate with others? I'm going to suggest, Gabby, that asking these questions and being quiet with the expectation that they will follow through will be useful for you. The structure of a debrief, the structure rather of an icebreaker, is mostly a godsend to people. They know what to do. Oh, this is something I know what to do. There's a process. Otherwise, it's just a clean slate, empty slate of what are we doing now? What are we doing now? Kay Ross, you're coming to us from Hong Kong, where you run, create, develop, and deliver workshops. You're deeply insightful about icebreakers. Any final thought before I start talking about debriefs? I'll give it to you, Kay. You can pass it.
It just sets the tone for the room for the rest of the event. Yeah.
We could use. Yeah, thank you. I want to quickly say that these activities cannot just set the. If we take Adam's idea and say, let's not think of it as an icebreaker, we can still use this structure as a debrief at the end, or at any moment where we can check in and see how it's going. We can use any of these icebreaker structures to do a check-in. Great. Yes. Who spoke up?
It was me, but it can be saved for a later time. Yeah.
That sounds mysterious.
Well, it was when we were talking about icebreakers, it's just right on the tip of my tongue. And I'll just say this, but I don't want to take us off into left field. It's when I do icebreakers, and mainly the last 2 years, it's been teachers in K through 12 education. I'll give directions like once or twice, and then I make it very clear to be watching their executive functions, how comfortable they can be with the uncomfortable, and all of that. before I'm even thinking about the debrief, because then I'm seeing how far I can go with these humans, so to speak, or what they're willing to offer. But that was kind of a statement from your before question.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Christiana. You bring up this really beautiful reflective moment that is key for anyone running a room. Look,
Yeah.
watching them do an icebreaker or do some activity is tons of information for you. You get to see who the leaders are in the room, who feels comfortable in the room, who might be an introvert that you might have to sort of try a different approach to. There's that icebreaker is in some way a needs assessment moment where you're seeing what's really happening in the room. Oh my God, it's we can think of it for them, but for you, you can really suss out who are the voices in the room and what's happening in the room, so you can see where they are. I'm going to share my screen because I think we've got about 20 minutes left, which is great. If you have questions, observations, or if you want to remember something, put it in the chat so we can save the chat later and you can go, oh yeah, that was insightful. I mean, we do have this opportunity to have, whoops, hold on, you shouldn't see that yet. Okay, there we go. Yeah, okay, so use the chat as a note-taking capability tool to capture notes. If I said something that's of interest to you, write it down there. If I said something that you disagree with, write it down there. Either one, in my mind, is valuable. Somewhere in this debrief activity, in this section, if I don't get to it, please remind me. I want to tell you how debriefing saved my career and probably saved my life. So I have a personal story to tell about that. Saved my life. Sometimes as an icebreaker, I use these puzzles. And the words and their relationship on the page suggest a phrase that's in common usage, generally in North America, but maybe in the world. Hey, Bright Sue, are you here? You got a guess about this one, Bright Sue?
Paid, I worked because I had worked, so I get to get paid.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. When you're looking for answers in debriefing, whatever the response is, please reward it. Please acknowledge it. If you can, repeat something, some phrase or some words that they said. This is a key to owning the room and gaining the respect of the people in the room. This is a real key to debriefing. However you debrief, you don't know where they are unless they start talking. Get them to talk and reward it. Tyagi taught me a technique I'll share with you because it's absolutely absurd. In a big session with Tyagi, I think that I organized here in San Francisco with Rebecca Stockley, my good friend. Tyagi asked for some feedback about something and someone spoke out. Tyagi opened his wallet, took out a dollar bill, and gave the dollar bill to the person who spoke. It was crazy. Matt, it was just crazy. So someone else said something and he took out and he gave that person a dollar bill. And at some point he said, I reward all contribution. Any contribution to our time together is important to the group and I want to reward that. He probably did it for about 4 different people. And the 5th person, he didn't do it. And he did a little sort of feint and he went, oh, but now we're contributing for intrinsic value, not extrinsic value. And so everyone was able to go with that transition. I was working with 50 managers at an international organization in San Mateo, and I did this, and talk about warming the room up and making it safe to contribute and get your voice in the room. It's fantastic. So Bright Sue, thank you for that. I love that. I love that because I work, I'm paid. Because I work, I'm paid. It makes complete sense. Sybil Meyer, Good morning. Hey, it's nice to see you. Do you have a thought about what other phrase this might suggest?
Yeah, I'm overpaid. Wait, I'm I'm underworked. I'm underpaid. I'm overworked.
I'm overworked.
Yeah, I'm underpaid. I'm overworked.
It's not. That's great. That's great. That's the one I had in mind. Of course, there are probably others. This is the basis of my philosophy about debriefing. The power of debriefing is because they make the connection. When you give the connection to them, in my opinion, my experience, for a training, you are robbing them of a beautiful moment of making the connection, of them closing the loop. The person who gives the answer is robbing the student or the person of this beautiful moment. And you think about it as think about a teacher saying, hey kids, why don't you take the yellow crown and the blue crown and mix them together because they create the color green. I mean, oh my gosh, what a disservice to learning. I'd rather say, I wonder what happens if we start mixing colors. What happens if we start mixing colors? Let's try some. What about yellow? No, blue, what happens? Then there's that moment of spark. And it's not just something they've been told, it's something they discovered, and the chance of it being lasting longer. So the power of the debrief, the purpose of the debrief is to help them make the connection. This, of course, is the Socratic method, which is asking questions. Even though you know the answer, you know where you want to go. You have an objective. You've been hired for this training. You've got something in mind. So you've got this idea. But how do you lead them to make the connection? I see what looks like a number of people writing things, and I think it's really quite valuable. I hope some people are drawing pictures as well. So, in full disclosure, I was a working mime until I got into improv, and I was paid as a mime, and I found that there's more money in improv. I've studied with Tyagi. Here's my overarching theme: that any activity is just an excuse for the debrief. The activity is less important than the debrief. The activity is less important than the debrief. The debrief is where they're going to make the adjustment. It's where they transform. It's where they say something out loud, it comes around and goes back in their ear, so they're trying it on. In my experience, my personal experience when I'm talking to other trainers, we get nervous about debrief because in that moment, it's out of our control. I want to dispel that, or I want to invite you into that out of control moment. It's a beautiful moment. That moment of giving it up to them, that is a beautiful, beautiful moment. My standard debrief that I learned from Tyagi is in 3 categories: what, so what, and now what. What, so what, and now what. Let me dig into those specifically for you. I will say, based on you might have a different experience, but my experience is it took courage for me to ask these questions and pause. It took a lot of courage. And the further we get down towards the 5th and the 6th question, that took a lot of courage. In the what section, I ask, how do you feel? In the beginning of a workshop, the first time you ask a question is the moment of truth, where they are determining what kind of trainer you are and what kind of training this is. And this is also good, equally true for meetings. Are you really interested in an answer? Are you going to attack any answer? You imagine it from their point of view. They're in a room with their peers or another group or strangers, and a question is asked, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know what kind of person this is. He might attack me. He might do some correction. I might be publicly shamed in a way for not getting it exactly right. Ask, how do you feel? How do it feel? And be silent. If they're not talking, this is a critical moment. You've got to get them to talk. Now, how does it feel is a big open question. The chances are that they'll never talk about how they feel, particularly if they're men. I'm sorry, men. Sorry. Men generally don't talk about feelings. They're generally not comfortable about it. But there are some people in the room who like to talk about feelings, and just by asking the question, whether they speak or not, it will acknowledge their language. How does it feel? How did it feel? In my experience, if they don't talk, you got to put them into pairs and get them to talk to each other, and then come back and talk to you. And then that moment is the moment where you reward them, acknowledge what they said, repeat some of the words they said, acknowledge the value of that contribution, so that you create an environment where they will talk. That, of course, is predicated on the idea you do want them to talk. Next is what happened. These are really low-level, easy questions. Like, how did you feel? Turns out you're an expert in your own experience, so you knew how it felt. Felt awkward, felt weird. Fine, thanks for putting it in the room. Felt awkward, felt weird. What else? Anyone else? Anyone else? How else did it feel? Get that into the room. What happened? This is your engineers, your introverts. God, they love this. So what happened? So we started with how did we start? I use a vocal inflection that lifts up there, sort of, and try to pepper that along. So what did we do? We did this, and then I asked you to go into breakout rooms. So what else happened? It just gets the framing in their head. So this, in some way, is building trust. Next, so what? This is why you're paid. This is the money part. This is the money part. So what does this have to do with anything? How does it relate to anything? What did you learn? What do you learn? The second question is a little bit more about the relating, but this whole section is about the so what, how does it relate? So I encourage you to try these phrases and then hold silence after them. If you're on Zoom, you can do the kind of thing that I've been doing, which I learned from my colleagues at Stand and Deliver. It's called the spider. You call someone's name, you tell them what you want from them, what you expect from them, and then you say their name again. So I would say, Laurie Meckham, I want you to give me a sort of just a quick reflection. What are your thoughts about what I've said so far about debriefing? Laurie?
I think that acknowledgement of participation is the most important thing that you can do. And I appreciate the idea of inviting people into pairs if they aren't quite able to get there to respond.
Thanks, Laurie. Getting them to participate is, if you want it, is great. Getting them in the room with you to be present is terrific. I've also it makes me think, I've also put them in groups of 3 or 4, and I'll often say, look, if you've got nothing to say, I really love this phrase. In your conversation, in your little group, if you have nothing to say, that's all right. Fate has put you with some really smart people. Just ask them questions or just listen. It'll be great. So what? What did you learn? What are the skills that we're learning there? What's being learned in that? And how does it relate to the work you do? Now, these first 4 questions took me a long time to get, but it's the last 2 questions that really took me the longest to ask. And they're in the category of what I would call what's next, or what, now what? So what if we were to take that activity of breaking out into pairs and talking about something and make it more to our culture at ABC Company? How would we adjust that activity and make it more our culture? How would we change that to make it more relevant? I really encourage you to jump the line and don't wait as long as I did. Ask the question and hold some silence and see what they come up with. Think of how would we change that activity? Anybody got any ideas about how we would change that activity? Any ideas about changing it? Even that is enough. What if we made it a competition and we judged the answers from the group? What if we spent all of our time on those answers? What if we were to write those answers down and create a manifesto for our company? What if? And by the way, that's kind of a fun section to play with. But that next question is what's going to get you a career. If the other two questions are the money questions, I think this last question is the career will build your career. Well, now that we've talked about it and looked at how it felt and what happened and what we learned and how it relates, what adjustments can you make in your job, in your life, in your world to take advantage of the learning of that experience? Does this suggest any change for you? Will you try what I call little experiments? Will you try a little experiment because of what we've talked about in the shared experience? That is the question. Those answers are going to get you, I think, build a career. They're going to make people want you to hire you and bring you back and bring you back and bring you back, because it's not just 90 minutes of playing with someone or doing some interesting activities with someone, but it's about really tying it into future behaviors and a little bit of accountability. Sometimes you can, William, stop sharing, make your final point, and tell your story. Okay, a little self-talk there. That last question does not need to be vetted, in my opinion, by the trainer. You don't have to approve them. You don't have to approve their answers. I have seen this mistake so often. A mistake. It's not a mistake. It's the way that people run the activity. They get together at the end. They say, okay, so what are you going to do differently? Maybe as the end, what's been of value today? And somebody says, well, it's really valuable to talk to somebody who does work in big organizations. I really appreciated talking to my friend Amy. And the trainer will say, yes, well, of course. The kind of connections you make with people like Amy are the point that we get together. And that's why, that's the important thing. So what's happened there, in my opinion, in that dynamic, is the trainer has taken this beautiful observation by Adam and said, I'm going to take that observation and then I'm going to own it. And then I'm going to put it out there for you. So that last question, what are you going to do about it? What can you do about it? Does not have to be in public, but I encourage it to be in smaller groups. Talk to each other about it. What are you going to do next? And by talking in small groups, of course, it creates a little bit of accountability. That's a lot of me talking, huh?
Did you tell us the story about how debrief changed your life?
Yeah, I just, thank you, Matt. I'm looking at this, at your faces and names, and I see so many people that I know and have been blessed to know. And yeah, it's fantastic. To see Bruce there and Toby, who does improv and applied improv in Bermuda. And Kay does it in Hong Kong. This is a beautiful community. And I just want to remind you that this community is here for you. Find a way to connect. If you write to me, I'll send you those debrief questions on a little PDF.
you want me to put your email in the chat box?
I will. I'll
Yeah.
put it in the chat box. And of course, if you don't already have a copy of the Improv Game Playbook, I really encourage you.
Yeah, get that.
Yeah. And go to improvgames.com. I've got a lot of improv games there and a lot of videos by people who are on this call. Matt did a video for me. Adam promises to do a video for me, he says. Bruce is going to has done some videos for me. Okay, I want to tell you how improv saved my life. I think it really saved my career. I think I would have gotten out of it. 13 years ago, 14 years ago, I'm in Germany. I'm working with an international company that's based in the South Bay. It's a big, big deal. It's, I've spoken at the World Economic Forum. I've worked in big venues, but this was really sort of senior VP area thing. And it was a big deal. And to say I was intimidated would be correct. And I was running one of the breakout rooms and, we'd finished what we were supposed to do in the breakout room and I had some time. And here's what I did. I said, I got an activity for us. It comes from the world of acting and let's try it. And I set up the activity. My brain has blocked out what the activity was, but I do know the effect. The room died. Everyone looked at me with confusion. Everyone was like, I don't know. What did you ask me? What was that? It was clear that I did a bad job. It was the wrong call for the moment. And they couldn't see the relevance of it, and it just imploded. Now, to say I wanted to run from the room would be correct. To say that my hand started doing this kind of thing, maybe you've had that experience when you're in front of a room where suddenly your hand's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? But I remembered Tyagi, and I said, all right, great, perfect opportunity for us. Let's talk about that. Get into 3 groups, please. Group 1, I want you to talk for 3 minutes about what we were supposed to learn if it had gone well and it had worked. Group 2, I want you to tell us what we learned because it went badly, because it failed. What can we pull out of that? And group 3, I want you to talk about now that we've done all this, what do we do next? And to my surprise and delight, these business people went, okay. And they turned to each other and boom, they were in conversation. It was a revelatory moment for me. And in that moment, here's my other trick. I watched them to make sure they were in conversation. I turned back to where I have my notes and a glass of water. And I reached out for my glass of water, still looking at them, kind of smiling and encouraging, taking a sip of water. And as I put the water back on the little table I had there, I went back to my notes to see where in the hell I was and what the hell I would do next. I don't know if I'd stayed in the business if I hadn't had that experience. We're out of time. Thank you for being here. It's William at fratellibologna.com. Most of you can find me on LinkedIn. If you send me a note, I'm going to send you those debriefs. There's so much more to talk about this, and there's so much wisdom in this room. Christiana, Frank, thank you for letting me be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank everyone for coming. These will be running quarterly. Have an amazing rest of your day, week, and holiday. Thank you, William Hall. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Reach out to me. Let's keep the conversation going.